West Africa has become an international illegal drugs trade hub. We'll examine efforts by the international community to curtail substance trafficking. A Finnish church organization provides crucial support to a number of African countries. We'll have the details. And digital democracy is on the rise in Africa. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Suicide bombers killed 9 people and wounded 13 others in multiple blasts in northeast Nigeria's Maiduguri on Sunday evening, according to the police. This is the latest in a spate of attacks in the city worst hit by the Islamist militant Boko Haram insurgency. Now, Bono police said a male suicide bomber killed a security guard after entering the University of Maiduguri near the city center on Sunday evening at 10:20 p.m. local time. 4 female suicide bombers killed 8 people around an hour later on the outskirts of the city in Zanari community after detonating devices in residential buildings. A number of suicide bomb attacks by suspected members of the jihadist group have taken place in the capital of Borno State and its environs in the last few weeks. Now, conflicts in East and Central Africa have left communities devastated. Displacement of communities to either refugee camps or other areas within their nations have led to thousands of children being denied education and families losing livelihoods. Most of the conflict areas are both inaccessible and wrought with danger. Many local and international organizations have a hard time helping the millions affected by the conflicts or other harsh conditions in countries such as Central African Republic, South Sudan, Somalia, and Eritrea. West Africa has been an international drug shipment hub. In 2016, the West African Regional Group, ECOWAS, launched an initiative to address drug trade and use through the criminal justice system as well as medical treatment. VOA senior analyst Jeffrey Young spoke with ECOWAS and NGO anti-drug officials about this effort.
Because of its proximity to drug sources in South America and Asia and destinations in Europe, West Africa has long been a hub for trafficking illegal substances. Making it even more attractive to drug traffickers is the region's poor law enforcement and ability to monitor aircraft, boats, and container traffic. More reasons for West Africa's attractiveness to transnational drug trafficking are detailed via Skype from Geneva by NGO Global Commission on Drug Policy official Barbara Gudde.
Geography is a big part. Then, of course, it's a region that has seen a lot of civil wars until about a decade ago, and they're still struggling to recover from that. So governance in a lot of areas is weak, and drug traffickers know about that and move in where there's a void, where there's lack of governance on the ground.
Closely tied to weak governance is corruption, as amplified via Skype from Accra by NGO International Drug Policy Consortium official Maria Goretti Aneloglo.
You get instances where cartels are able to bribe officials with huge sums of money and to be able to get away with. So before you even get information that drugs are coming in, and so there should be steps taken to make sure that this is addressed. They have already passed because they've been able to.
To strongly address West Africa's drug smuggling and production, ECOWAS, the 15 member nations of the Economic Community of West African States, launched last November a new anti-drug action plan. High and middle-level drug offenders, the traffickers and dealers, are targeted under this plan for tough law enforcement and punishment. But for drug users, especially those who are addicted, the ECOWAS plan calls for alternatives to jail, medical treatment, rehabilitation, and social reintegration, as explained via Skype from Abuja by ECOWAS drug policy official Daniel Okwasi Amankwa.
Yes, we have it in our law books, but we need to also consider people who are using drugs as people who are having health problems. So it's a two-way approach.
The ECOWAS drug policy official says another sought reformed is proportionate sentencing. Someone with, for instance, 50 grams of illegal drugs should not get the same jail time as someone else caught with 50 kilograms. Mr. Amankwa also says the group's drug action plan reflects the United Nations Office of Drug and Crimes position that the so-called war on drugs should be conducted by law enforcement to standards of fairness and respect for human rights.
When we talk about law enforcement at the outcome 2, we specifically added that the efforts or the approach towards law enforcement should be in consonance with the human rights stipulations in the member states' laws.
Mr. Abankwa tells VOA that ECOWAS is working to provide member states with templates for enacting uniform laws and enforcement regimens in order to prevent situations where drug traffickers use so-called easy countries to move contraband. He says ECOWAS is making a concerted effort to work with the European Union, which is the destination for the cocaine, opiates, and cannabis that floods through West Africa, to try to reduce the demand that in turn causes such turmoil among the ECOWAS states. Jeffrey Young, VOA News.
The United Nations says a cholera outbreak in will ravage Yemen could infect more than 300,000 people by the end of August, up from nearly 180,000 cases today. VOA's Mariama Diallo reports on the dire situation resulting from the 27-month-long conflict, which pits Houthi rebels against government forces backed by a Saudi-led coalition.
Children have been the hardest hit by Yemen's cholera outbreak, accounting for half of the nearly 180,000 people currently infected. The UN humanitarian chief described the outbreak as a man-made catastrophe caused by the warring sides in Yemen's 27-month-old civil war.
The numbers are absolutely staggering. It's getting worse, and the cholera element, in addition to all the lack of food, the lack of medical supplies for people, is of course primarily one has to put that at the door of all the parties to the conflict.
Oxfam is calling for a cholera ceasefire. Its humanitarian director says governments backing the warring factions are stoking the conflict instead of prioritizing the humanitarian crisis.
Governments who are providing generous funding are also making money from supplying weapons, munitions, military equipment, technology. They're providing logistical and financial support for the military action taking place. This is fuel to the fire, not helping reducing suffering on the ground.
The disease is caused by ingesting bacteria from water or food contaminated with feces. Of all the infected so far, 1,200 have died, according to the World Health Organization. Yemen is also on the brink of famine, with about 17 million people uncertain of where their next meal will come from, according to the World Food Programme. A hospital in Yemen's port city of Hodeidah struggles to cope with severe cases of child malnutrition. And this doctor says beds and medical supplies are also running low in her ward.
There's an overflow of patients, with 10 or 12 patients daily and sometimes more. The number of malnutrition cases has spiked in recent times, more than the department can take.
UNICEF warned last year that nearly 2.2 million children were acutely malnourished. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. Want to check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, co-working spaces are multiplying in Washington, D.C. and often welcoming business owned by women. Stay with us.
I'm Jeff Selden, and I work the National Security Beat. National security beat is anything that affects the national security of the United States, from counterterrorism to surveillance to even relations with Russia. It's one of the most fascinating beats you can have. It's probably one of the more important beats that you can cover because it touches on so many areas of the world, so many areas of people's day-to-day lives. I'm Jeff Selden, and my beat is national security.
I'm Millar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Well, the fundamental nature of the relationship between Washington and New Delhi will be up for discussion at the White House on Monday when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives for his first meeting with President Donald Trump. VOA White House correspondent Peter Heinlein reports the two leaders will be looking to put the bilateral trade relationship on a positive track.
The outward signs are auspicious. Days before Indian Prime Minister Modi's visit, a rural Indian town with little electricity or running water renamed itself Trump Village. A group of Hindu nationalists held a party with a huge cake to celebrate Trump's birthday, June 14th. Historically, the India-U.S. relationship has hinged on personal chemistry between the country's leaders. And there is reason to believe Modi and Trump will get along personally. Though they have not met, they share a fondness for social media and a sharp focus on domestic job creation.
They are professional deal makers. To be sure, one comes more from a private sector background and one comes from a combination of rising up the ranks of both party and the government of India. But here are people who know how to operate, who know how to make a deal, who know how to make a statement.
Trade issues could be an irritant in the talks. Trump has placed India on the list of countries whose policies should be reviewed because of its large trade surplus with the United States. Trump also ordered a review of U.S. immigration rules governing the H-1B visa program, which could sharply affect India's booming information technology industry. American businesses are urging Trump to take even stronger measures to pressure India because promises by previous India leaders to lower trade barriers have not lived up to expectations. Linda Dempsey from the National Association of Manufacturers explains via Skype.
We have long, as manufacturers, sought a bigger and more improved relationship with India, but unfortunately there's a lot of long-standing barriers that remain in place and new ones that are being put in place.
Unlike in past U.S.-India summits, no mega deals are expected, though India is pushing for a multi-billion-dollar purchase of U.S. Predator drones. Experts say this first Trump-Modi face-to-face is an opportunity to make a course correction that will set the tone in Washington-New Delhi ties for years to come. Peter Heinlein, VOA News, the White House.
Well, from an unknown idea a few years ago to a buzzword, the co-working movement is spreading rapidly around the world and changing the way people are working and developing new businesses. Well, here in the nation's capital, Hero Hub is offering co-working office space to women entrepreneurs. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho has our report.
Julia Westfall is the CEO of Hero Hub DC, a co-working space in the Washington, D.C. area, where she works to cultivate an ecosystem that supports budding women entrepreneurs as they launch small businesses, collaborate in a professional, productive, and spa-like environment.
We're a female-focused co-working space. We provide professional meeting and workspace for women who primarily work from home and are looking for a professional place to meet their clients and to work and to collaborate with other women.
Here at Hero Hub, new businesses have been spurred, funding secured, and lifelong relationships built.
We have a really great variety of women. We have lawyers that work out of our office here. We have people with marketing companies. We have writers, several best-selling authors. We have people that are have nonprofits and support nonprofits. We have business coaches and personal coaches and parent coaches. So it's a really large variety.
Westfall says her vision is to support more women in the launch and growth of their businesses. Julia Westfall has spent nearly 25 years working with small businesses, helping them with their bookkeeping and cash flow management. She says the hub is not a one-size-fits-all co-working community.
We're interested in finding women that are looking for support for themselves, that are excited and interested in interacting with other like-minded women.
Several other companies are benefiting from Hera Hub, including Yantra Ventures, a platform that is investing in infrastructure, energy and power to accelerate economic productivity in sub-Saharan Africa. The managing partner of Yantra Ventures, Raja, explains the firm's objectives.
We recognize this as a problem of lack of infrastructure, and so we're trying to link private capital with public sector demand for infrastructure on the continent. Our focus is infrastructure around economic growth. So investments in, let's say, power, energy, and any infrastructure that supports a value chain.
Another entrepreneur taking advantage of the co-working space is Lisa O'Donoghue Lindsay, founder of the social enterprise She Inspires Her, an online and mobile media platform that shares stories about women entrepreneurs in emerging African markets.
Interview women from all over sub-Saharan Africa, and I write their stories up about their businesses and how they got started, the obstacles that they faced, roadblocks, how they overcame them, and resources that they've used. And then I post the story on my website, and I do a lot of social media promotion of the women and their businesses. And the main goal is to offer inspiration to other, especially younger women out there.
According to analysts in emerging markets, although 8 to 10 million small and medium-sized enterprises are owned by women, at least 30% of the women are self-employed in the informal sector. In sub-Saharan Africa, that figure is above 70%. Lindsay's mission is to support the growth of female-owned small and growing businesses in Africa. She also plans to open a Hera Hub franchise in Namibia. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the rise of digital democracy in Africa. We'll be right back.
Passage ici. Let's organize elections together, as a nation, together.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile, in more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Welcome back. It's been dubbed digital democracy, a whole new way of scrutinizing the government and those on the public payroll. Now, across Africa, websites and mobile apps are offering citizens the chance to engage more closely in politics. Everything from complaining about poor service to whistleblowing on corruption. And Ritual has more.
From cashless payments to smartphone apps offering everything from taxis to takeout food, Africa's digital revolution is gathering pace.
You're seeing a lot of the people changing the way they live their lives and also creating for themselves wealth, jobs, opportunities, but also to engage politically on a very different level.
Sarungi is the founder of the Change Tanzania platform. What began as a social media hashtag has ballooned into an online social movement with an app and website listing dozens of petitions and initiatives, ranging from demands for security cameras at bus stops to a community beach clean.
Before used to be people sitting on the streets just talking a lot about politics, but today they've become influencers. With the social media platforms, your voice can be amplified.
In Uganda, the website Yogera, or Speak Out, offers a platform for citizens to scrutinise government, complain about poor service, blow the whistle on corruption. Kenya's Mzalendo website styles itself as the eye on the Kenyan parliament, profiling politicians, scrutinising expenses, highlighting citizens' rights. But the new platforms for political engagement also risk a backlash.
We are seeing government trying to control as much as they can the virtual space.
The founder of whistleblowing website Jamii Forums last year fell afoul of Tanzania's Cyber Crimes Act, charged with failing to disclose users' data.
Hatupingani na serikali, hatupingani na polisi, wala hatupingani. We are not against the government, nor judges, nor the police forces. What we are against is the Cyber Crimes Act, which seems to oppress the people.
Meanwhile, authorities in Cameroon cut off internet access for millions of people earlier this year, following anti-government protests in English-speaking regions of the country. The French campaign group Internet Without Borders warns that African governments are increasingly using internet blackouts to stifle political opposition. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Now, there is a new mural on the brick wall outside the famous Washington restaurant Ben's Chili Bowl. It is part of a city program aimed at combating illegal graffiti. VOA's Mahmoud Lalo tells more about the mural and the artist.
As an illustrator, there's always a narrative behind everything. I grew up in Nigeria, and we have this thing called Ekonge, which is like a nighttime stories where people gather around and they say Ekonge, and then the people respond Gekong, and then the person starts telling the story. So as a child growing up around that, created a narrative in my head of how to take things from out of thin air and create stories and create morals around the stories. My name is Aniakan Odofia, and I am a painter and illustrator here in Washington, D.C. As a child, my parents pushed a lot of coloring books on me and my siblings. So over time, through practice, I've come to enjoy the mere gesture of drawing and doodling and painting. So I came here in '99, where I pursued art, painting, and illustration as a career. Ben's Chili Bowl has been around since 1958. It's one of the oldest establishments here in D.C., and it's a landmark. Here, it survived the D.C. riots. That's why this mural is very important, and me working on this is also very important as well, because it's an honor to be working on this we were able to come together, Murals DC, Ben's Chili Bowl, and Ania Khan, and we are able to create this.
The process of Murals DC, all of the artists that are interested in painting different murals, whatever process they have, and then they choose. And then they ask us, would we like to have him back? And we said absolutely, because I thought he did a beautiful job, and I think he's very talented.
I have 16 people on the wall, and the 16 people were based off of a contest that Ben's Chili Bowl held to determine who gets to go on the wall next. And it's a combination of that and sort of like celebrating Black excellence over time. There's Wale on the wall as well, who's also Nigerian American, and I'm Nigerian American, and I'm working on the wall, and it's such a relief to paint to represent my people and the people here.
What really struck me most about the mural is the fact that we have the past and the present together. It's a cohesiveness there where you have the past with Harriet Tubman, and then you have the present with the artist Prince and Michelle and Barack Obama. And had it not been for people like Harriet Tubman, we wouldn't have people in the positions that they are.
When it comes to portraits, for example, rendering the people to look like the people, capturing the right essence of the people. So if you look on the wall, each individual, me and my art director, we had to sort through at least 100 of each person.
This is in the community, so we have to consider a lot, because it's not just about what we want or what we feel good about or what makes us happy. It's about how the community is going to respond. Are they going to embrace it? Will they like it?
The ultimate goal is to eventually do enough here to earn some notoriety and be able to take this skill set back home to Nigeria, because Nigeria is such a ripe place for any good thing to happen.
But I've been inspired by everything you've done around the city, brother. I really appreciate it, okay?
I didn't think that I would be doing this for a living. So the best advice I can give the youth is follow the right path. You know, be yourself, but follow the right path. And that right path can only be translated through how I'm living. So if someone a young person can come out and see what I'm doing and be inspired and say, hey, I want to do what that guy is doing, I think my work is done.
To have been part of that first batch on this wall was so special to me.
You thank all those people who voted to put you on Ben's wall.
This means an enormous amount to me and my family. I'm very proud of it.
Fabulous job there. And that's our show for today. Now, be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Dogs are popular pets in the U.S. So, what could this expression mean? It sounds just terrible. Let's listen.
Dog eat dog. The media industry is so competitive.
I know, but these days, so many industries are. It's really just a dog eat dog world.
I want to work in a place that is the opposite of dog eat dog.